So when Jaylen Brown got that big extension, I think the first thought was, okay, this guy's going to have to make some strides on offense, right? This is a dude who, yeah, he's averaged 15 a game for a season, but you're going to need a little bit more from him off the dribble. And through his, 17, 18 games played for the Celtics this season, whatever it is, the dude has showed some real ball handling stuff. And his averages are up across the board. He's had a number of 20-point games, and he's had so many moments of actually scoring on tough defense and creating his own shot. I mean, I don't want to go through all the little numbers, but a couple are this season about 52% of his baskets have been assisted, or 2-pointers at least, and that is the lowest amount in his career. I mean, last season, 57% of his 2-pointers were assisted, and yet his scoring is still up by a decent amount of points, about 5.5 points. On top of that, his possessions where he scores off of 2 dribbles or 3 to 6 dribbles, those are all up from last season as well on NBA.com. And just watching Jaylen, this was a guy who it seemed like he was never going to be able to really utilize his athleticism because he just couldn't beat dudes off the dribble. I mean, his speed without the ball was significantly better than his speed with the ball. And you would have these dudes who should not really be able to stay in front of him, staying in front of him. And you could tell that he would be thinking about his dribble as he was going about it. And if I'm not mistaken, he would occasionally even look down at his dribble. But this season, he kind of looks like a different dude, where sometimes the offense isn't really going anywhere, and it ends up in Jaylen's hands, and then he busts out an actual move, whether it's like a crossover or between his legs or whatever it may be, to where he's actually able to get into the paint and he's able to get his defender off balance, and from there he can finish. I mean, his free throw attempts are up to 4 a game this season, which is a little better. His free throws in general have been better, which was something that was a little concerning for me through 3 years shooting below 70%, but that's at 73 on 4 attempts a game right now. And I feel like this was the kind of thing Jaylen had to do this season, or else that extension was going to start to look a little scary. I mean, you know, I wasn't doing backflips over the extension, but I was definitely like, okay, Jaylen is not a finished product. We should give him time to figure it out. But I didn't really think he would potentially be averaging like 19 points a game this season. I mean, we knew that last year didn't get as many attempts, and, you know, the whole Celtics team was weird. But it just seems like Jaylen's going to be a better offensive player now. And if you want to look at some boring numbers, like his assist percentage is slightly up to 10%. I mean, I don't think we expect him to really ever be a playmaker. Or even then, maybe we should like a little bit more. But his turnover percentage is a little down as well. Now, granted, you know, assist is 10%, turnover is 9%. But still, for a guy who we didn't really know if like where he was going to end up as an off-the-dribble dude, it's still progress, man. That's the most important thing. It is progress. I mean, his assists are up to 2.1. Okay, it's better than nothing. If we look at his pick-and-roll numbers, he's in the 68th percentile of pick-and-roll ball handlers. He's running about 2 of them a game, and whenever I've seen him do it, he just looks a little more respectable. He certainly still is thinking about the dribble a little bit. You can still tell that he is a little mechanical with his moves, but he can actually do it now. So that is still an improvement, and he has looked pretty okay on post-ups this season. He has not done it that often. But anyway, Jaylen is shooting 78% on post-ups. Granted, he's only averaging 1 a game, so it's not like a huge offensive thing for them. But it is like, whenever he's had the opportunity, it's been like, oh, okay, perhaps that can be a thing in the future. And then his three-point shooting has been pretty solid. I mean, 4.5 attempts a game, 36% from 3. I mean, he was a good three-point shooter in the second season, so I'm not really surprised on that one. I figure just catch and shoot threes, Jaylen can continue to be pretty damn all right. So suddenly you've got a guy who is improving on his handle We know how athletic he is. He's up to 1 offensive rebound a game, which has basically been what he's done his whole career. And then showing some more signs as an off-the-dribble playmaker, ball handler dude. What does that make Jaylen Brown's ceiling? Because before this season, I would have said 17-point scorer, great defender, solid everywhere on offense, but not great at anything. And I don't want to go as far as to say he's going to be great at playmaking or anything, but if we can project to 26-year-old Jaylen Brown, assuming that he continues to make improvements to his handle, like, is this a guy who you look up one day and it's like, oh, this dude's actually like a consistent 19, 20-point scorer? While, of course, giving you what he gives you on defense and stuff. You know, it could be. Could be. I mean, I know he just had a bad game against the Nets or whoever, and I do still think if a defense loads up on Jaylen, he could have some problems. So, I mean, you know, playoffs matter for these things, of course, and all that, but dude just flat out got better, is the only way to put it, you know? And suddenly, you look at his contract, and really, it doesn't look as bad. When you look at the fact that the salary cap is going to go up, we assume each season, because that's what it's doing now. That's what Real GM predicts. It says, like, in 2022, the salary cap is going to be $125 million. That's just an example. I could have picked out any year where it will apparently keep going up. But basically, you look at that, and you look at the fact that Jaylen's contract never even touches $30 million, where we are in a league now where Tobias Harris is going to make like $40 million 1 year for the Sixers. Chris Middleton is in the 30s for his whole contract until the mid-2020s. We suspect Andre Drummond might just get a huge payday this offseason. Vucevic just got a decent amount of money from the Magic, and he looks as average as he did before last season. Granted, his contract goes down. But, you know, like the Sixers are risking Horford deep into his age. We've got CJ McCollum, who's going to be hitting, you know, the 30 millions. And CJ's a good player. But the point is, there's a whole bunch of dudes who are in that, like, mix of the $20 to $30 million range. And there's certainly more that I could name. And the only dude that I named in that whole group who I would confidently say is better than Jaylen is CJ. The playoffs are still going to matter here. I mean, Jaylen, if he goes into the postseason and averages 12 a game and the Celtics lose in round 2, then it could be a different conversation. I mean, then we could be looking at him as kind of like an equivalent to Middleton, who did basically the same thing for the Bucks against the Raptors, and it's like, well, you're paying this dude a lot of money, and I don't know. We'll have to see. Maybe Jaylen goes nuts in the playoffs, maybe he sucks, maybe he's just meh. But I think we can all agree his extension looks a lot better now than it did when they signed it, you know? And I know I did a whole video on the Celtics earlier, but I guess just to touch base on them. They are good. They have not really been healthy completely all season. Like, Jaylen missed some time. He came back. Hayward's been out. So once this team is all good to go, then I think they are going to be pretty tough to beat. The Eastern Conference in general looks pretty damn good between them, Bucks, Sixers, Raptors, Heat. I was so wrong on the Raptors, man. And, you know, Indiana has looked interesting even without Oladipo. Because I don't know if anybody saw Brogdon doing this. And so now, you know, we're still going to have to see with Oladipo. We don't really know if he's going to be that guy this season, but they look interesting and kind of frightening in all of this as well. So it'll be interesting to see at the deadline, and I'll probably just make a video on this eventually, but it'll be cool to see, like, who gets aggressive at the deadline or even before the deadline. You know, I think the Bucks could use one more, like, real shooter. I think the Celtics could use a big, even though they have made the center rotation work. Tice has been good in his, like, 17 minutes a game. Robert Williams continues to have high potential, but in terms of being an effective, like, help you win dude right now, it's come and go. Some games he looks good, other games he looks bad. Enes Kanter hasn't played too much, but when he has, it hasn't been bad. But, you know, you could see, and with Kanter, a lot of it was injuries, but you could see, like Tristan Thompson on the buyout market. I think he could be huge for the Celtics. In terms of an actual move for a big, I don't really know, because you're not trading any of your main dudes. Like, I've seen some people put out like Marcus Smart's name in trades. That's not happening. So I don't know. It'll have to be some savvy move or a buyout or whatever, but I think that's the one thing they need. But then that guy can get some screens from Jaylen, because apparently Jaylen's kind of okay at that now. Anyway, that's it.